The receptionist didn't even bother to read the application. She took one quick look at the tired man standing in front of her and silently placed his papers on the rejection pile without thinking twice. In her mind, he was just another desperate job seeker who had walked into the luxurious headquarters of Harrington Global Industries hoping for a miracle that would never come. His boots were covered in dust. His brown jacket had clearly been worn for years. His hands were rough from hard labor, and the dark circles beneath his eyes revealed countless sleepless nights. Nothing about him looked impressive. Nothing suggested he had ever accomplished anything important. Around him, executives wearing expensive suits hurried across the marble lobby while assistants carried laptops and coffee cups from one meeting to another. Nobody noticed him. Nobody smiled at him. A few employees glanced in his direction before quietly looking away, as if poverty itself was contagious. One young employee whispered to another, "He looks like he got lost." The second one chuckled. "Maybe he's here asking for directions to the nearest shelter." Both of them laughed under their breath. Daniel Carter heard every single word, but he kept his eyes on the receptionist. Years ago those comments would have hurt him. Today they simply reminded him how quickly the world judged people by what they wore instead of who they were. "Here's my application," Daniel said politely, placing the neatly folded papers on the desk. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity." The receptionist forced a professional smile. "We'll call you if you're selected." Daniel nodded with genuine gratitude. "Thank you. Have a wonderful day." He turned around and slowly walked toward the glass entrance. His footsteps echoed across the enormous lobby. Nobody realized they were watching a man whose kindness had once changed another person's destiny forever. Outside, heavy rain had already begun falling. Daniel pulled his old jacket tighter around himself and started walking because he couldn't afford the bus fare. Every step splashed through small puddles as cold rain soaked his clothes. After nearly 20 minutes of walking, he stopped outside a toy store. In the display window stood a beautiful pink bicycle with a white basket attached to the front. Daniel smiled sadly. Every morning before school, his 7-year-old daughter Lily stopped in front of that same bicycle. She never begged for it. She never complained. She simply admired it with innocent eyes before quietly saying, "Maybe one day, Daddy." Daniel reached into his pocket and slowly opened his worn leather wallet. 1 $5 bill. 3 $1 bills. 2 quarters. That was all the money he had left in the world. He looked back at the bicycle and whispered to himself, "I don't know when, but I promise you, Lily, one day I'll buy it for you." He slipped the wallet back into his pocket and continued walking through the rain. 40 minutes later he finally reached the tiny apartment where he and Lily now lived. The building was old and neglected. Paint peeled from the walls. The staircase creaked with every step. Water dripped from the ceiling whenever it rained. But to Daniel, it was still home because it was the only place where his daughter felt safe. Before he could unlock the door, it suddenly flew open. "Daddy!" Lily shouted happily as she threw her tiny arms around his waist. Daniel's tired face instantly brightened. Every burden disappeared the moment he saw her smile. "There's my little princess," he laughed softly as he lifted her into his arms. "How was school today?" Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Daddy, guess what? I got the highest score in my science test." Daniel gasped dramatically. "Really? That's amazing." She proudly pulled the paper from her backpack. A bright red A+ was written across the top. "My teacher said she's very proud of me," Lily said with a huge smile. Daniel gently kissed her forehead. "She's not the only one who's proud. I'm the luckiest father in the world." Lily looked up at him carefully. "Daddy, did you find a job today?" For just a moment, Daniel's smile faded. But only for a moment. "Not today," he answered gently. "But tomorrow is another chance." Lily nodded confidently. You'll find one. You're the smartest person I know. Those simple words broke Daniel's heart because she believed them with all her heart. He wished the rest of the world believed in him the way his daughter did. Daniel smiled at Lily, but the moment she ran to her room to finish her homework, the smile slowly disappeared from his face. He quietly walked into the tiny kitchen and opened the old refrigerator. Inside were half a loaf of bread, 2 eggs, a bottle of milk that would barely last another day, and 1 apple. He closed the refrigerator without saying a word. Then he opened the kitchen cabinet and pulled out an old coffee tin hidden behind a stack of plates. It had once been their family savings box. Now it held only $8 and a few coins. Daniel stared at the money for several seconds before taking a deep breath. Rent was due in 4 days. The electricity bill had already been overdue for almost 2 weeks. If he failed to pay again, the power would be disconnected. He rubbed his tired eyes and quietly whispered, "Please, just one opportunity." Before he could put the coffee tin away, Lily suddenly appeared behind him. "Daddy, are we having your famous grilled cheese sandwiches tonight?" Daniel quickly smiled and closed the cabinet. "Of course we are." Lily clapped happily and ran back to the living room without realizing there was only enough cheese for 1 sandwich. Daniel carefully made dinner. He placed the entire sandwich on Lily's plate while he poured himself a glass of water. Lily looked at him with confusion. "Where's yours?" Daniel laughed softly. "I had something earlier while I was out." Lily accepted his answer because she trusted her father completely. Halfway through dinner she stopped eating, picked up the last piece of her sandwich, and placed it on Daniel's plate. "Sharing makes food taste better," she said with an innocent smile. Daniel felt tears filling his eyes. He accepted the small piece, not because he was hungry, but because refusing it would have hurt her feelings. Later that evening, after helping Lily finish her homework, Daniel tucked her into bed. "Can you tell me a story?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "What kind of story?" "Tell me about Mommy." For a moment the room became completely silent. Daniel looked at the framed photograph sitting beside Lily's bed. Emily smiled back at them from the picture exactly as she always had. "Your mommy was the bravest person I've ever known," Daniel began softly. "She believed that every problem had a solution and every storm eventually passed." Lily hugged her teddy bear tightly. "Do you miss her every day?" Daniel gently brushed Lily's hair away from her face. "Every single day." "Do you think she's watching us?" Daniel looked toward the window where raindrops slowly rolled down the glass. "I know she is." Lily smiled peacefully. "Then Mommy knows you'll find a job soon." Daniel kissed her forehead. "Good night, sweetheart." "Good night, Daddy. I love you. I love you more than anything in this world." After Lily fell asleep, Daniel quietly closed the bedroom door and sat alone in the darkness of the living room. His eyes wandered to another old photograph taken almost 10 years earlier. It showed him, Emily, and baby Lily standing in front of the small house they once owned. Back then life had seemed perfect. Daniel had a steady job at one of the largest construction companies in the state. Emily worked as a kindergarten teacher. They weren't rich, but they had enough. Every weekend they worked in the garden together while little Lily played with bubbles in the backyard. Daniel remembered promising Emily that one day he would build her the dream house she always wanted. But life had made different plans. Everything changed the day Emily collapsed while teaching her class. At first they believed it was only exhaustion. Days later the doctors delivered devastating news. The illness was aggressive, rare, and incredibly expensive to treat. Daniel sold their second car without hesitation. Then he emptied every savings account they had. When that wasn't enough, he borrowed money from relatives and friends. He worked double shifts, weekends, and holidays, refusing to leave Emily's side whenever she needed him. For nearly a year he fought with everything he had. But sometimes love isn't enough to defeat fate. On a cold winter morning, Emily held Daniel's hand inside the hospital room and whispered her final words. "Promise me you'll keep Lily smiling, no matter what happens." Daniel had nodded through his tears because he couldn't speak. A few minutes later, Emily was gone. The silence that followed changed his life forever. Medical bills consumed everything they owned. Then, just as Daniel tried to rebuild his life, the construction company where he had worked for almost 20 years unexpectedly shut down. Hundreds of employees lost their jobs overnight. Daniel was one of them. He spent months attending interviews. Every employer gave him the same polite smile. "We'll let you know." Nobody ever did. Eventually the mortgage payments stopped. The bank took their home. His pickup truck was repossessed. Piece by piece, the life he had built disappeared until all that remained was a tiny apartment, a little girl who believed in him, and a promise he had made to his dying wife. Daniel looked toward Lily's bedroom and quietly whispered, "I haven't broken my promise, Emily. And I never will." At that exact moment, several miles away, inside the magnificent penthouse office of Harrington Global Industries, Billionaire CEO Victoria Harrington sat alone staring at one simple job application lying on her desk. Her fingers trembled as she slowly traced the name written across the top of the page. Daniel Carter. 15 years had passed since she had last seen that name. 15 years of success, wealth, awards, and headlines. Yet not one day had gone by without wondering what had happened to the man who had once sacrificed everything to save her future. Little did she know, tomorrow morning would change both of their lives forever.